Interested in learning about wine, but not sure where to start? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. I'm your host, Haley Bowman, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm a wine enthusiast turned wine educator and founder of the Seattle-based wine tasting business, Cork and Fizz. It is my goal to build your confidence in wine by making it approachable and lots of fun. You can expect to learn everything from how to describe your favorite wine to what to pair with dinner tonight, and so much more. Whether you're a casual wine sipper or a total cork dork like myself, this podcast is for you. So grab yourself a glass and let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. So glad to have you here. Today, we will be listening to part 2 of my interview with Daniel. He is the CEO of Currently Wine Co. Now, if this is the first episode that you are listening to of Cork and Fizz, I'm so glad you're here, but I would recommend going and listening to part 1 first. You'll get a little more context in that interview. That is the episode just before this one, episode 117, and then you can come back and listen to this one. Now, if you prefer out of order, you go for it, my friend, but just know that this is part 2 of my interview. Daniel is the owner and CEO of Currently Wine Co. He has a background in building tech brands, and he hopes to bring those skills to create a disruptive wine brand to a slow-moving industry that is ripe for change. His wine brand currently has a focus on sustainability, impact, and just enjoying wine as it's meant to be enjoyed. In this episode, we'll talk more about the sustainability efforts that Currently is making to have a positive impact on the environment, how Currently makes their wine and ensures high quality while focusing on sustainability, the benefits of using an aluminum bottle over glass. Yes, I said aluminum. Daniel's go-to bottle of wine to bring to a dinner party, and so much more. Let's get into the episode. Okay, well, let's dive into now the sustainability, because I know that's a major aspect for Currently. What choices are you making for Currently to have a much lower carbon footprint than other brands in the wine industry?
Yeah. So when I started just digging around about this question of carbon footprint, and I use kind of sustainability and carbon footprint in the same way. I mean, to become more sustainable, we need to lower our carbon footprint of consuming the wine, right? So how does one go about doing that? And if we had some type of pie chart, and I've put some of this material out there in the past, I can send it over. We can dork out on charts with people. But basically, you don't have to look very far. The biggest thing is the weight of the vessel getting transported.
Interesting. I feel like that wouldn't be the first thing people think of.
I don't think so necessarily either, which is why all of this feels like really dorky and academic. And I don't want people to necessarily have to, like, I'll do the work and then you can just support the cause. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's like, okay, but the reality about being a consumer of anything is that the closer that thing is to where you are, the lower carbon footprint is then happening, right? So the only year in the past 100 years where we actually had lower carbon emissions globally was when COVID happened and nobody was going anywhere.
Wow.
And we stopped traveling, which is bad. And then you start consuming.
You were consuming more local. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Right. So, getting more local, getting more domestic, is actually a lower carbon footprint thing. But the actual weight of the thing that's getting shipped around matters, right? And in wine's case, a bottle of wine in a traditional glass bottle, about half of that weight of that product is the glass, is not the wine, right? And there are other things like aluminum that weigh almost nothing compared to glass, and you therefore reduce the carbon footprint of consuming by half by lowering the weight and then doing some things also in the vineyard. So there's things you can do actually in the vineyard and in the winery and in the vineyard itself. A lot of that is around water waste, and that's a much more sustainable way of producing. So instead of going around and using the right type of irrigation, and then instead of using a bunch of chemicals, which have their own kind of footprint associated with them, there's owl boxes that just, eat the rodents, right? And so they don't don't eat the grapes and destroy the leaves and stuff. So it's stuff like that where there's just people are making very intentional choices. There's, certifications associated with these things. There's gradations of certifications. I didn't know anything about any of this stuff, but I just got into the weeds about it and was like, okay, well, what's like the actual legit certification? Who's doing this stuff well? So when we went and sourced our wines, because I don't own any land, I don't own any equipment, I myself do not know how to make wine. I only know the difference between wine that tastes awesome and wine that doesn't,
Sure.
and have an enormous amount of respect for the people that then know how to turn these
Right.
grapes into the most beautiful thing ever. But I was looking for the people that were then also making these types of choices, right? So we have, like the highest level of bar for certification about our certified sustainable practices, both that are being done in the vineyard and in the winery itself. The wine itself is certified vegan as well, which is interesting to me in some ways because I was always like, wait, why isn't wine vegan?
Right? You're like, excuse me, wait, grapes are vegan. What are we talking about here? What did
Yeah.
you put in the wine?
Yeah. And, part of this is like the lack of overall transparency about what is used
Yeah.
in winemaking and in the bottle that, I am all about creating more transparency and trust with buyers. People, if they're going to make a decision to put something into their bodies, I want them to feel comfortable knowing that we're not hiding
Right.
what's in this product. As a matter of fact, I want you to know exactly what's in this product so that you can make that choice for yourself, right? And so yeah, we're really proud that it, is certified vegan. The thing, by the way, in wine that makes it not certified vegan is that in the process of taking out the little bits, called fining the wine, not like you got a parking violation and you're getting a fine, but
Sure.
it is the same spelling, that the products used in fining are, some of them are egg-based and some of them are fish-based. And I know that when I say that to people, then they're like, my wine has fish in it? I'm like, no.
Right.
It's inert in the flavor. No, it's not like that. But these were basically processes that were developed on farms 150 years ago.
Right.
And sticky yolk helps to kind of pull these things apart. And there's a kind of protein-based collagen. So it's great. That works. So I don't have anything per se knocking non-vegan wine, but it just so happens that my wine is not using those things and therefore it is vegan. And for the percentage of people that then care about that, it's like, hey, here you go. By the way, we'll be able to say this on the bottle.
That is true. I feel like that's just like honestly a good marketing thing to be able to like market to that group of people as well. Because I agree with you. There's a lot of things in wine. I actually did an episode, I think it was either a couple just before this, where it was about like things that are in your wine and just talking about that. Because I think we hear the word additive and it freaks us out. But sometimes they're just things that have been used forever. Like you said, I mean, egg whites are a totally traditional way to get all those little particles out. They stick to it and then they get the egg whites out of the wine. It's not like you're actually drinking it, but you wouldn't know that. And so if you see a wine and you're like, oh, this is vegan, and then somebody says it's not, you'd be like, wait, hold on, huh? And like you'd have to know so much information to know what's in it. And so it's even just in the simplest thing, we're not saying anything against non-vegan wine, but it's nice to be able to market and be able to reach that group that are vegan and have them feel confident that they can drink this wine. Just a quick reminder, if you are not on my mailing list yet, what are you waiting for? I would love for you to join. When you do, you'll get a free shopping guide that has 15 of my favorite wines under $15. Head to corkandfizz.com, scroll down to the bottom, and there'll be a little section where you can join the mailing list. I send out a weekly newsletter filled with wine tips, recommendations, special offers, and so much more. Now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah. And I mean, going on to this point, if we could a little bit, because I think that, the data that I actually saw about this type of millennial and Gen Z buyer saying that, hey, I want to know what I'm putting in my body. I want to understand what's in this bottle. One of the biggest things that they care about is sugar, is additional sugar. I mean, alcohol is a sugar, but
Right.
when we are talking about an alcoholic beverage, we're talking about, is there any sugar that's not the alcohol, right? And this was like a huge learning to me because I never had really considered that a dry wine, which I know means that it has 0 grams of additional sugar in it, I'd never considered that most people don't necessarily know that, and that because there is no requirement for wine, unlike for other beverages. Like,
Literally any other beverage. As soon as you remove alcohol from wine, they have to put a nutrition label on it. It absolutely kills me. Sorry, I
it's
digress.
so
Go ahead.
crazy. No, so well, I was like, well, but people care about this stuff,
Yeah.
and I want to make sure that we're being transparent with people about what's in the bottle. And so we're going to make sure that we tell people that our wine has 0 grams of sugar and 106 calories for a 5-ounce serving. Because that's one of the reasons that they're having a hard seltzer, is because they might think, whether it's correct or not, that a glass of wine is worse for them on those two metrics than a seltzer would be. And when we can then bring that information forward voluntarily, because you're right, it's not required, even though it should be. I'm like,
Yeah.
why is
Weird.
the wine industry fighting this? I think I know why. I think it's because there's a bunch of
Yeah. I
sketchy.
think a lot of your typical grocery store brands, you're going to see that they are putting some sugar in their wine, or they
There's
are,
sugar in the wines. There's sugar
yeah.
there. It's masking things. There's I think the sugar thing is this kind of like secret thing that's kind of going on in the wine space to try to, I think, hide and trick. But I hear it from a lot of people that they're like, "Oh my God, I love that you say that this is 0 grams of sugar." And it's making me wonder, now that I'm then tasting, this is no knock on like New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, for instance. I know
Sure.
people love New Zealand Sauvignon. Most New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc has a touch of sugar in it. And you can probably taste that if you then were to do like a side by side, right? With like, whether it's currently or not. I mean, you could take a Sancerre, right?
Sure.
And then you'd be like, okay, right. And then you ask people also the next morning.
Yeah, right. They're busy complaining about sulfites, and you're like, no, no, no. It was the alcohol plus the sugar, my friend.
I mean, it ends up adding up to people. I really do hear that from a lot of people.
Yeah. I think it's so hard because I was always very adamant about, like, I didn't always love when wines would say they were sugar free, or they were like, there's no sugar, or like, and I think this came from like the healthy and the fit wines, which I still stand, against that. I don't think that makes any sense at all.
No,
But I'm realizing now that like some of it comes from like, maybe I was up on my pedestal a little bit because I was over there being like, well, I know a dry wine has no sugar. So you can drink all these wonderful, European wines and all of these wines from small producers in the US, and they're not adding sugar. It's a dry wine, like, and you don't need to put it on the label. But that was because I knew that. And a lot of people who are just getting into wine, that is far more education than they need to enjoy the wine. So just being able to say 0 grams added sugar, or, something like that, just informs them of that without having to do all the education.
I totally agree. And this is again where I think, because I, like you, went through the education and learned the words and everything. And then you take for granted that those words, not only do they not mean something to, in my case, the lifestyle buyer that I'm catering toward, but they actually mean something different to people,
Yeah.
which is even worse, because you're
Yeah.
actually then, it's not like you're speaking a foreign language that someone can't understand. You're speaking a foreign language and then saying words in English that don't mean the words in English. So a dry wine to a lifestyle wine drinker, my customer, a dry wine means a wine that makes your mouth feel dry after you drink
Because
it.
wouldn't that naturally be the thing you'd think it would mean?
Of course, it makes total sense. It's a very logical way. And therefore, a dry wine is actually high in tannin.
Right.
That's the actual thing going on with wine. And so people will say all the time, and I will say that I used to really judge this, and now I just think of it as like good markers for me to understand who someone is, because I can't judge it at all, because it makes total sense. If you don't have this
Yeah.
wine education, why is this? They say, I like wines that are dry and are a little bit sweet.
Oh, sure. Okay. And you're like, wow, that was an oxymoron. But of course, that's just that's just because you speak the wine language.
Exactly. Exactly. And so what they mean, I think, when they're saying that, is that they like wines that are bright and have some fruit content in them,
Yep.
right? And are probably 0 grams of sugar.
Yeah.
That's what I think that's being communicated, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a fun tangent to go on. I do love talking about, and it is such a great thing for me to realize too. Like, I had that. I was like, oh, I really need to give wines a break when they're saying 0 grams of sugar on the label because they're doing that to be helpful and to like
Yes.
share that information.
Yes, because you don't have to be a collector's like all the way on the side, but right, an explorer, right?
Yeah.
And I think of you certainly as an explorer, right? And your audience is probably in varying shades of explorer mode, which is a wonderful time of life to just explore wine. God, it's just
Yeah.
the
Just
best.
for funsies.
Oh, it's just the best, right? But I mean, you kind of, you kind of realize that that person actually knows what 0 grams of sugar means. They know it means it's a dry wine, right? But the rest of people don't know. If it just says on the label, this is a dry white table wine, right? They don't know what that means. So 0 grams of sugar is actually a great way of just speaking everyone's language.
Exactly. Yeah. I like that. Okay, we're going to talk about the wine. I want to go back to one thing because I was so curious. This question popped up when you're talking. So, you sell currently in aluminum bottles.
Yes.
Why bottles and not cans?
This is a great question. So, the thing we had talked about before, where there is a consumer bias against alternative packaging, I think that there is a distinct difference in the way that people view wine in a wine bottle shaped aluminum can.
Yeah.
It is a can, right? A bottle. It's actually like a bottle, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Versus a traditional, what we think of as a pop top can,
Yeah.
right? And unscrewing a bottle, which people are now more or less not so stuck on the idea that good wine can't come with a screw top, right?
Yeah. Even that, it takes away from like, the traditional or like the feel, people still
Yeah,
feel like you need to like pull the cork out for it to like
yeah.
feel really like wine.
Yes, exactly, right. But interestingly, right, like for a lot of people, especially with white wines, people are like, "Oh, a screw top grade," and you go to a restaurant that serves wine and they're like, we're not like at the bar where it's busy. They're like, "We don't even bother buying wines that have corks because it's such
Sure.
a time suck for them. It's a pain in the butt to then have to go and open up the
Yeah.
wine and stuff like that." So yeah, I really do think that, and again, this is me just kind of looking at anecdotal data, that there is a distinct disadvantage that wine brands that are in cans have when it comes to how do consumers
Yeah.
view that product. And I do think that in this vessel form, we escape most of
Yeah.
that because people's initial take is, oh, this is a pretty bottle.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, this is canned wine. Nobody actually calls currently canned wine.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't even think of it. It's in a bottle. Why would I call it canned wine?
Right, right.
But it's in
So
an
if anything,
aluminum
they'd say it's,
bottle.
yeah, they'd say it's in an aluminum bottle, but it's not, and again,
Yeah.
yes, the lack of the actual pop top, I understand kind of makes it
Yeah.
kind of functionally different. So you end up, I mean, unless you're in a desperate moment or whatever, you end up pouring this wine because it's a 750 ml too, right? You end up
Yeah.
pouring this wine into your own cup of some
Yeah.
kind, right? Or wine glass, whatever. And canned wine, which is usually in like half bottle size formats, sometimes people then end up drinking
Drink
that
it.
wine straight out of thing, which whether or not you feel like the wine is like inferior or not, say the wine is never inferior, the wine is great. Some people, that's a hurdle. Like that
Yeah.
I'm just actually drinking my wine out of like the same type of can that I'm drinking out of anything else because they don't want to drink wine in that format, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'd never even thought about it that way, but you do view those. You view those differently. Cool.
I think that the consumer views those
Oh,
things.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I do a little bit. Like, I think, like pouring from a bottle is also like, and it's also shareable. So it feels like other wines that are out there, that like you have a friend over, you're going to do that versus like a can. You're only going to have those when you're solo. I feel like I'm not usually one to like pour some for a friend, So it just like doesn't have the same vibe as I think about with a lot of wines.
That's right. Yeah. And you had mentioned this, it's not readily obvious to people that it actually is in aluminum. Like
Right.
that is, I think, that for me as a brand owner, right, that cuts two ways. On one hand, it's awesome because people aren't going down this canned wine equals inferior wine thing. So I don't have to then overcome a
Right.
hurdle there. I then overcome it anyway when people taste the wine because then they're like, oh my God, this is really freaking good. Not even for canned wine. They're just like, this is just good wine.
Yeah.
But there's also, I mean, it's a challenging thing to then communicate on the other end of it that this wine is shatterproof bottle. So you can take it to the boat and the beach and the pool. It's not totally obvious to people at the beginning. So I'm trying to do more like with my signage and the way that we're communicating to people to let them know, hey, shatterproof bottle, right? Which then
Yeah.
people know, oh, I can take this with me to these places that glass is not allowed, right?
Right.
And I'm not trying at all to, in the purchase moment, communicate any of the carbon footprint stuff or any of the glasses ass kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's not my job at that moment. It's not, that type of education campaign would take millions of dollars and many years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Okay, last thing I want to talk about before we dive into, I do a little speed round at the end of every episode. But obviously, this is a wine podcast and you are selling wine. So let's talk a little bit about the wine that's in the bottle. We've done a little already, but can you tell me a little bit about how the wine is made? Where do the grapes come from? What is the process like? Who makes your wine? All that good stuff. I'm so grateful to the sponsors who help make this podcast possible. And today's sponsor is one I personally love, wine.com. I'm all about exploring new wines, but let's be real, it's not always easy to find unique bottles, especially if you're limited to what's near you. That's why I love shopping on wine.com. They have a huge selection, wines at every price point, user-friendly search features, and real wine experts ready to help you find your next favorite bottle. And here's a special deal just for you as a podcast listener. Get free shipping on orders over $150 at wine.com/corkfizz with promo code corkfizz. My recommendation? Build a mix of 6 to 12 bottles to try. Some some you've never heard of. Not sure what to pick? Message me. I'd love to help. Or take advantage of the live chat wine experts at wine.com.
Yeah. So again, as a brand, there are many brands out there. They source product that is then made by experts, right? So I've done the same thing, and it was a really fun process to kind of go through. I assembled a panel of my wife and her Savvy Bee loving friends, and presented them with wines that were all made sustainably and 0 grams of sugar, right?
I bet you had to really convince them to be
Oh
your
yeah,
panel
this
for
was a
this.
very
Yes.
difficult. This was a very, very difficult thing to have come true. And what was really fun though, because again, it took me out of this frame of, oh, I'm supposed to be sitting down and taking notes about
Mhm.
every piece of the flavor profile and everything. Like, because it's a $20 bottle of wine that is supposed to just be yummy. It's just supposed to be delicious and easy to drink, right? So what are the flavor profiles that make something like that? Now that to me is really of interest, right? And that's what we then tried to assemble. So the wine itself is from the northern part of the central coast of California in Monterey County. This is a cool climate growing region because you get this marine layer that comes down from the ocean kind of around the corner of the mountain range that's on the left side. And you have the Santa Ana Highlands over there on the left side that makes world-class Pinot Noir, another
Mhm.
thin-skinned grape like Sauvignon Blanc that benefits from cool mornings and then warmer afternoons so that you get this balance of the right amount of fruit from the ripening and then acidity from the slowness of that ripening actually happening. The lack of certain things from a flavor profile perspective is one of the secret ingredients of currently.
Interesting.
So California Savvy Bee tends to be ripe, and with ripeness tends to come one specific fruit flavor that is polarizing, and it's grapefruit.
Oh, interesting.
And I didn't really know this until I really got into this, but now going around and sampling the wine to a bunch of educated wine buyers, like people at restaurants and stuff that are, that are credentialed in wine and know a lot about wine. When I come to them with my wine, and they're like, "Where's it from?" I was like, "Well, it's from Central Coast, it's from California." And then the first thing, now that I've done this a bunch, because the first thing I then say is, but it doesn't have grapefruit on it. And then they go, oh, good.
Interesting.
And so there's a whole bifurcation that has gone on of this like domestic Savvy Bee market that is like, you're in camp grapefruit or you're in camp not grapefruit. Like literally like you don't like grapefruit on the,
Okay.
and I think it's actually like, it's like the pith of the grapefruit. So you get
Sure.
this as the finish. This is what happens. And I really can't believe how strongly people feel about this, right? So the wine also does not have some of the traditional flavor things that you get from a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc because it's from a totally different place, different weather. And, New Zealand traditionally, as you were talking about these gooseberries or some people, cat piss, right? Kitty, and then you get grass. And so currently does not have those things on it. So, it doesn't taste like a New Zealand Savvy Bee. It does not taste also like a more, I would say, traditional California style. It tastes more like a Loire or a Sancerre style Sauvignon Blanc that has a light, crisp, with a nice minerality on the finish. People like to use the word clean when they are talking about the flavor experience of the wine because it finishes nice and clean because of the nice acidity that it has in it. It's 12.4% alcohol because it does not sit in a hot growing place. So it is actually lighter in that way. I mean,
Yeah.
this is certainly not low alc, when we talk about that part of the industry, but you can get California Sauvignon Blancs that are 14.5%,
Yeah.
and that's a different wine. It's heavier in your mouth. It's got a ton of usually like tropical fruits and grapefruit finish. And, it's got bracing acidity and big fruit. And there's a bigness to that, and those wines are certainly can be incredible wines, right? And some of them are $100 a bottle. I mean, in Napa Valley, I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
I'm not talking about wine that's cheap when I'm talking about this flavor profile, certainly. But, we're really trying to deliver something that can go with or without food, that you could have outside, you could have by the pool, and is, again, this phrase kind of, easily crushable.
Yeah. Gotta love a crushable, like a patio pounder I've heard
Yeah.
before as well.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
like them. They're good. Okay. If folks want to try your wine, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can go to currentlywine.com and place an order. And we should do some promo. Let's make sure we add in.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I can put it in the show notes for folks to.
Okay, great. Yeah. So there'll be a Cork and Fizz discount code that we'll be able to provide for people. We'll do a 20% discount code that people will be able to get. That's what we're going to
Sounds
do.
good.
For
Okay.
people. Cork and Fizz 20, and you'll see it in the notes there as well. And then also, if you live in the East Coast, please go to our website at currentlywine.com and find where we are near you. Because if you can buy it nearby, that is much better for the environment. It's also much better for our brand as we are trying to show that we have customers that are purchasing the wine where it's available in locations. It's available in over 135 locations today, and many more are coming as we're expanding up into Maine right now. So please check in there.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Yeah, folks, try out the wine. Now, to end every episode, I do what I call a speed round. It doesn't mean that it's going to be like necessarily rapid fire. You don't have to come up with things in a second, but it's meant to be like, go with the first thing that comes to mind, because otherwise these questions could take a very long time.
Let's do it. We'll do it quick.
Okay. What is your favorite wine at the moment?
I always love Left Bank Bordeaux. I don't care what time of year it is, although I do tend to drink seasonally.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What is your go-to bottle of wine to bring to like a dinner party or to share with friends?
I tend to bring sparkling when I go to places. So there's some really cool kind of French producers that are not part of the big houses that I love to.
Sure. Do you go the Cremant route or do you go champagne?
No, I do like Cremant, but I think if I'm bringing something, I'll like bring champagne just so that it says champagne.
I need to invite you to my get-togethers. That sounds great. Somebody that brings champagne with them, like, thank you.
Well, it's partly so that my wife, she'll want to drink a glass if they.
Sure, that helps too. Bring the wine that you want to drink as well, right? And she's like, we want to drink
I mean, this sounds cheesy, but like,
oh, of
every
course.
time we go somewhere, I'm bringing Currently, and it's very much a standout thing because the bottle and everyone's, what's going on here, and then if I don't do that, my wife is like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Isn't that like kind of tacky of me?" And she's like, "No.
I mean,
Currently
if
is
it wasn't
awesome,
good,
and
then it
it's
would be bad. But you mean, if it's something that's enjoyable, fun, then you're just like, you got to show it off.
exactly." So I do end up bringing currently around, and
Yeah.
I mean, I will say it is really fun I'll probably have a glass tonight. It's just a
Yeah.
really fun thing to be able to enjoy because I do like to drink white wine in the summer, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I like it. Okay. How about a favorite wine region you've ever visited?
Ooh, I loved visiting Piedmont.
Ooh, okay.
And I loved it because when we got there, thinking that we were going to be going down this Nebbiolo train, and
Uh-huh.
I knew about Barolo and Barbaresco, and we were, really excited to be drinking some of these amazing wines. And I got there, and what I didn't know was that Nebbiolo is actually not the most widely grown grape in that region, red wine grape. And so I got introduced to and fell in love with Barbera while we were
Yeah.
there. And I think Barbera is, first of all, a much more approachable grape than
Yes.
Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo is really, it's like a fickle, mean spirited, crotchety person or something. I don't
Yes.
even know. Like, and you have to warm to it and it takes time. And Barbera, can be just really, really light and refreshing. And then there's ones that are made more in a more like serious way that are unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
really incredible wines, for a $50 bottle of wine that'll blow your mind about its depth and complexity. So yeah, Barbera, where it's at.
Cool. Okay. Now, on the flip side, a wine region you'd like to visit that you haven't yet.
Okay, well, I'd mentioned that I am like a Francophile,
Yeah.
I've never freaking been to France.
Oh, no.
I mean, do I have to only pick one when I go on this bucket list trip to France? I absolutely have to go to Bordeaux. I have to go to Bordeaux. But I would love to go to the Loire Valley. I would love to go down into Burgundy. I would love to visit Champagne. I need a full nation tour.
Yeah.
The Creux Hermitage going down into there's a lot of.
Yeah, trust me. I went for the first time last fall. I went in September last year, and we were there my husband and I were there for 10 days, and it was like so hard choosing where to go. Cause like, I feel like we could have spent 10 days in the Loire Valley itself. We only went to one area in the Loire. And so, yeah, I'm like already ready to like go back to France and like visit where I was already and then go to new regions. It's like, I need like so much longer than 10 days.
I believe that there are probably 7 wine regions of France that if you told me you can only drink wine from one of these regions, but we will draw it at random for the rest of your life, you would still be discovering things years and years on because it's, the regions are so diverse, the Loire in particular. I mean, you can have there's reds and whites and sweet wines, and I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, so yeah, I agree. I need to go 10 days, one of the spots, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
back again 10 days, just another one of the
Yep,
spots.
exactly, exactly. Okay, how about a favorite wine and food pairing?
Oh my God. I mean, I sound so cliche saying this, but I actually really do love like a cab blend with steak,
Yeah, can't I
with
mean, it's popular for a reason.
grilled steak. I truly love that. But I have been to restaurants and done some like really type of fun tastings. I love oysters, and so I love a Savi B, just like currently. It doesn't have to be currently's not the only one, but currently with some oysters on Cape Cod is like to me that's like an infinite summer kind of feeling.
Yeah.
I love doing that. And then my favorite dessert, forget the pairing. My favorite dessert is to just have a sauterne. Um,
Yeah.
and whether or not there's any additional food associated with that, that's just gravy.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's so rich itself, it's like this has to be the dessert, I can't have anything else.
Totally.
I don't know how the French do it with, like, cheese at the end of their meal and a rich glass of sauterne. I'm like, "What are you doing? How do
Yeah,
you do
I think
that?"
the portion sizes are
That is probably fair.
that's
Yeah.
what they're doing, and they do it very effectively, actually. So it's like rich foods all the way, but no 16-ounce
Yeah.
steak. It's like, Here's your
That
meat.
is
It is
fair.
4 ounces.
Yes.
You know?
That is fair. Okay, last two questions. If you were given $1,000 to spend on wine, you had to spend it on wine, how would you spend it?
Oh my gosh. So I think that what I would do is I think I would get a vertical
Okay.
of a
So
real
same bottle, different years, just for folks who haven't
same
heard that.
bottle, different years. Yeah. So I would it doesn't have to be a Bordeaux. I'm actually really into like the mountain fruit in California. This whole mountain fruit
Sure.
theme, by the way, that I talked about from the initial wine that made me fall in love with this has persisted in my life. Like
Sure.
elevation because it creates this denser, darker fruit flavor profile. So I'm obsessed with like places in California in Napa that are the mountain fruits, like Diamond Mountain and Spring Mountain. And so I would probably do that. I'd probably get a vertical where I could then go and I would space it out. The
Sure.
vertical would be like 5 years apart.
Nice.
You know, this would be, wine that's $100 a bottle. I'd get 10 of them and we would just have it go in 5-year increments back to, 1980. And we would just sample. Everyone would get a chance to sample the wines in reverse chronological order. You start old
Sure.
and then you kind of go young, and then you just get a chance to fully appreciate what happens to these wines over time, which I think is just so spectacular.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. I love it. Great answer. Okay. Last question. What is one wine myth or myth surrounding wine that bothers you the most?
I think it generally probably bothers me to think that like wine has to be expensive to be good.
Yeah.
And again, what expensive means, of course, like I'm myself someone who's higher income and a total wine snob, but I was hanging out with some people this week and he opened up a Mugo Reserve Tempranillo. This is Rioja, which is a Tempranillo grape. It was from 2001. And if you haven't had older Spanish wine like this, I would highly recommend it. It tasted to me, and I always ask, I'm like the jerk guest who asks how much the bottle of wine costs, but I
Yes.
do it for the reason of wanting to actually know,
Right. No, I do the same thing.
And it drank like there's so much complexity that goes on with these aged Riojas that if you like these bigger kind of cab style blends and stuff like I'm talking about, try this if you haven't done it because it will really blow your mind. Find a Rioja that's like 20 to 25 years old and you will find a complexity in that wine that is absolutely unmatched and world class. And I was drinking the wine and I was thinking to myself, and I love doing this. I love playing the guessing game. Like, I feel like this is probably like an $85 to $100 bottle of wine, and we were drinking it next to a Barbaresco that was also from 2001 that was probably more expensive than that even.
Right.
And this bottle of wine was $35. Wow. It was purchased from a wine shop nearby that they had gotten something from an estate sale because it had that much age on it. It's $35. And I'm like, now, is $35 nothing? No. Is it like a cheap product? No. But I'm talking about a world-class wine experience where we're sitting around and like you're really kind of freaking out about the wine.
Yeah.
That to me shows that no, you don't need to spend $100 to get something that'll blow your mind.
No, I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for joining me and talking. It's such a great conversation. I love that we went all kinds of different ways with it. Anything else you want to share before we end the podcast?
No, I'm just really appreciative. I know we were excited to be able to do this. I was personally excited about this because what you're doing out there in the wine world and bringing people in and making wine more approachable, I think is just what the industry needs and what so many people find to be really important in kind of demystifying and then like anti-snobbing kind of wine. So keep on keeping on, preaching the good word.
Thank you. That is exactly what we're here. We are anti-snob for sure. Even when I can get a little snobby, we do a good mix. All right. Thank you so much again for joining.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. Be sure to go check out Currently Wine. Their Sauvignon Blanc is absolutely delicious. I have tried it myself. Perfect summer wine, but honestly, you can enjoy it year round. Go to currentlywine.com to order yours. If you're on the East Coast, also go to their website to see where you can find it near you. Online, you can use discount code CORKANDFIZZ20 to get 20% off your order. If you love this episode as much as I did, please take a second, rate it, leave a review, share it with a friend, share it with all your wine-loving friends, let them know more about wine. Next week's episode is something I've never done before and is extra special because it's releasing on my 30th birthday. I have asked Mr. Cork and Fizz to come in and interview me. I know I'm usually the one interviewing people, so I think it'll be fun, but also I'm a little scared to be in the hot seat, I think. So I have asked for questions on my social media that you'd want him to ask, and I'm sure he'll come up with some dandies on his own. If you've ever seen videos of us together, we've posted a few on social media, mostly blind tasting, but I've also done a few Instagram lives with him as well, so you'll know it'll be a good time. So I hope you tune in for that. Thanks again for listening, and if you want to learn more about wine, come follow me at Cork and Fizz on Instagram. And if you're interested in exploring new wines and joining an incredible community of wine lovers, be sure to sign up for my virtual tasting club, The Cork Crew. Head to thecorkcrew.com to learn more and use code WINESPECIAL to get your first 2 months for just $8 a month. Cheers!